You're listening to a Well-Rounded Life podcast, episode number 67. Geomyra here, and I want to welcome you back to a Well-Rounded Life, or welcome if this is your first time here. Today's topic is one that has been on my mind for so long. The topic is based on my personal experiences as of late. I wanted to share with you what has been helping me as I navigate a new season in my life personally, as it relates to relationships with people that are close to me, or at least should feel close to me at this point in my life. The interesting thing is, I'm pretty sure that some of you listening are going to resonate with the topic, and the episode may also bring up some feelings that you may have suppressed for a while now. So listen in, chime in via our new Facebook group, search Living Well-Rounded Community on Facebook, and let me know your thoughts. It's time we get real on the topic of unleashing people from unrealistic expectations that we may have set for them. Are you ready for a deep conversation? It's going to be a good one, so let's go.
Hey there, and welcome to A Well-Rounded Life, the podcast, a space for creative entrepreneurs seeking an intentional life and biz filled with grace, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Geomyra. I'm a mama, wife, dessert fanatic, and on the ultimate mission to get you closer to your idea of what it means to live a well-rounded life. Right here is where you'll find curated resources, quick tips, and relatable stories, no matter what season of life you're in. So hang out with me for a bit and let's dive in.
Today's episode of A Well-Rounded Life is sponsored by my course, Systems for Your Sanity. Systems for Your Sanity is the course that I created to help us implement systems in our home. If you're a mama, a busy bee, or someone that's just trying to do things a new way, make sure you head over to systemsforyoursanity.com and check out all the details inside of the course. The course is fantastic for those of us that are trying to work smarter and not harder in our homes so that we can reclaim our time. Use code WELLROUNDER to save on registration for the course. All the details can be found in the show notes. Okay, so while we were on break from the podcast, there was so much going on in late fall, over the holidays, and so forth. The end of the year and the beginning of a new year really had my family facing some challenges. I have a feeling that one day very soon, I'm going to need to have a deep dive chat with you, friend, about what that experience was like in 2020. Specifically about my relationship with my biological father and the conversation that we finally had, and also my stepfather who raised me and all that was going on in that area. In dealing with the situations with my stepfather's health and finally having a sit down with my biological father after years of being estranged was definitely a roller coaster ride. Again, we will chat about that chapter at some time soon. But speaking of being estranged from my father, I want to get into the topic of toxic relationships with family members and friends. I know, a little sticky, a little taboo, a little uncomfortable, but it is a conversation that needs to be had. I've spoken about toxic relationships previously on the podcast. However, today I want to share with you the solution to a problem that I had been facing for years and years and years. That topic is the topic of having expectations for people and then dealing with the aftermath of said expectations when they fail to hit the mark. And it's interesting because one of my best friends told me years ago that when we set expectations for folks and expect them to show up and do things in the manner that we choose and deem appropriate, we are setting all of us up for failure. Let me break that down a bit. It's because the people that we tend to ask to show up for us, to care for us and whatnot, have expectations placed on them by us. However, the truth of the matter is they may not be able to hit the mark. Think about that. We all have expectations on how someone is supposed to show up for us. We have expectations on how a parent should treat their child. We have expectations that we have set on how our friends should move and behave in our lives and the roles that they should play. But then guess what happens? Your parents may sometimes disappoint you. Your friends may come off as being shady, selfish, or not supportive. Even your spouse or your partner may seem as if they don't care about you, when the reality is our expectations have not been communicated to them at all. When I look back, I can definitely see that there are people that I have had in my life that have made me feel like they didn't care about my feelings or how doing certain things made me feel, or the things that I said or they said just didn't matter. That they weren't supportive, that they only cared about themselves. However, that may not be the case. What I have found to be common is that we set imaginary expectations in our heads, we keep them tucked away in our heads, and we never ever communicate with folks to tell them and let them know what those expectations and boundaries are. And I'll give you a real life example, so stick with me here. In my case, I grew up in a rocky relationship with my father, which is no secret at all to anybody that knows us. I've shared here on the podcast as well a few times that my father has a great relationship with my sister. Not anything I'm knocking at all. It worked for them. However, the relationship that he has with myself and my other siblings is not so great. And so one could rack their brain trying to figure out the why behind our interactions or lack thereof. However, from my recent observations, my sister is able to meet my father where he is emotionally and mentally, meaning she doesn't hold him to the same standards that I have in the past. Because I love my children so much, and because through my husband I see how he shows up as an awesome dad, I find it hard at times to give my father grace and the benefit of the doubt. Until recently. Recently, I feel like I have had that aha moment or come to Jesus moment that I needed years ago. It dawned on me that no matter how I think my father should move and act, he may not ever be able to meet the bar that I had placed over his head at some point. He may never be able to be the type of father that I have envisioned and yearned for all of these years. Instead, he does what he can when he can. He shows up the best way that he knows how. Thus, I have to be the one to decide to be okay with just that. And if there's room for him in my life based on what he is able to give and to provide me. I have no control over how he will show up. I have no control over if or when there will be any changes. Instead, I have to decide if I am okay to take him as he is. If I'm okay accepting him for who he is and where he is in his life. He will never be the father that I expected him to be as a little girl once. But that is where I challenge myself and I say, who are you to set expectations on someone or something when they may not have the tools, resources, skill sets, or gifts needed to meet your standards, Geomyra? So let me say that again. Yes, we can remove people from our lives if they are not treating us in a way that we feel is appropriate. I do want to make that clear. If people are just straight up disrespectful, rude, acting like they don't have no sense, remove them. I don't care if they're blood or not. It's just not healthy. But I do want to challenge you to really think long and hard about the people in your life that have been disappointing you. And you really think about it, it may not be intentionally. They may be letting you down and it may seem like it at times. But I really want you to dig deep and ponder the question, does said person have the bandwidth, the resources, and the gifts to show up for you in a way that you feel is appropriate? In some cases, the answer may straight up be no. Some people that we want to be less selfish or selfless or more compassionate or understanding and so forth may not even know how to do so. God may not have given them the gift that you have or that the person next to them has. Some people aren't equipped to put others before them. Some people don't know how to show up for us when we really need them. I'm not saying to not have boundaries and to accept whatever. Again, I'm going to make that clear. But instead, I'm encouraging you to have a conversation with someone that has failed to hit your mark and ask them if it is their intention to keep letting you down. You may be surprised. Ask them if they are aware that they are not living up to your standards as a parent, a friend, a partner, or whatever. Those that really love you will at least hear you out and even make an attempt to change the behavior. Some people may only be able to offer up an apology, which is what I got a couple weeks ago, and will continue to go on doing what they are programmed to do. But I will say in that conversation, I finally felt compassion, and I finally felt an understanding that some people just don't have the tools. So if you don't have the tools, you can't build something, you can't make it better if you're not equipped. So think about that analogy. You want someone to build a house for you. You want them to protect you. You want to feel safe in a place. But they don't have the tools to build said house, structure, or protection. They weren't given those tools. And so be okay with knowing that as long as you treat people in a way that you feel is appropriate, then that is all that matters. You can only rack your brain for so long wondering why a friend treats you a certain way. But again, you can choose if that friend, and then I'm putting that in air quotes, has a place for you in your life. If you feel like it's a one-way relationship, then something there needs to change. When people show you who they are, believe them. I know you have heard that quote time and time again. And I hope that as you get older, which has been my case, that, people can show you and show you and show you, but at some point you have to be the one to make the decision to remove them, or even, as my friends and I say, you put them in a box. We put you in a box. We know how you're going to act. We know how you're going to roll. And so we put you over there, and then it's up to us to decide to interact with you and take you out of that box when the time is right. So that has been my lesson over the past few months, that, talk is cheap. It really is. It's all about taking action. So start paying attention to how people act and where their heart is when it comes to their interactions with you, and only you. From there, you can decide if there is space for them in your life based on how they have expressed how they're able to show up for you realistically. It's all about setting realistic expectations based off of both people talking about what their needs are and how they're able to show up and serve. Meet them where they are and decide what feels right and what needs to change in order for you to feel that the relationship is mutually beneficial. Because what we don't want is one-sided friendships or relationships. Because who has time for that? Who has time for that? I know at this age, I do not have one-sided relationships or friendships because I know what my needs are, and I know that I only need to have people in my space that I can pour into and that will also be by my side as needed. So you have some homework to do, friend. You and I both have some homework, some soul work, and some conversations that need to be had, and some relationships that may need a little bit of tweaking. I want you to look around, and I want you to look around and determine if you need to grant those people some grace that you may have written off, or that you may have ignored, or just even put in the box. Maybe some people need to come out of the box once you do have that conversation with them and say, you know what? I expected you to do this, and this for me. I expected for you to show up for me in this way or support me in this way. And number one, they may not have even known it was that important to you, which again was a part of the conversation I had with my dad. They may not have known how to support you. And you will be surprised that there are some people that feel like you have all that you need and there's no space for them, which was also a part of the conversation with my dad. And again, I'll share more about that at some point when I feel like I'm emotionally ready to come to the mic to discuss it. But I will say the power of communication is something else. I had expressed what my expectations were. He had expressed that he knew he was not able to meet them based on where he was in his life. And so through that, we have to figure out how we're going to move, what is going to change, or if anything is going to change. And we're still trying to figure that out. So you may need to switch gears. You may need to compartmentalize with some folks, as I said. But I do hope and pray that you find some peace and some clarity when it comes to the people in your life that you feel should be showing up in a different way. Let's get real with ourselves on if they're even able to do that. Because I'm going to tell you, some people may not be able to do that. So do yourself this favor and have those conversations. Be at peace. And I promise you, you will feel much, much better. Stop putting these expectations on people who just will never hit the mark. Do we have a deal? I hope so, because I want you to feel the sense of peace that I have after years and years and years of hurt and turmoil when all it took was a conversation. I would love to hear from you, friends. So if this episode resonated with you at all, tag me on Instagram. I'm at Coach4Creatives, or shoot me an email. All of the details are in the show notes. The website for our podcast is awellroundedlifepodcast.com. And if you have 2 minutes, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us those 5 stars, and write a quick review of the show. It would mean so very much. Thanks for hanging out with me today, friend. Until next time, remember to stay safe, stay positive, and focus on what matters most. Oh, and don't forget to have those conversations. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Friends, thanks for kicking it with us this week. Remember to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode airs. I'd love it if you leave us a review and share this goodness with your squad. Until next time, seek a well-rounded life and remember to focus on what matters most.